Hello again to all subscribers and listeners of this channel. Today, I'm going to let you guys know something. Almost a week ago, last weekend, I finally saw Black Panther. And I must say that I thoroughly enjoyed it. And this is basically my review of it, so here's what I thought of the movie. By the way, for everyone that hasn't seen the film yet, there will be spoilers throughout this entire video. So because of this, there will be like a 45-second pause where you can just click this video off and just go to another video. Because if you haven't seen it, there's going to be nothing but spoilers throughout this entire thing. Just to let you know. So, let me go ahead and do that. And with that being said, let us begin the review. First thoughts about the film Black Panther. I thought the film was really good. I really liked it, and I hope to see more films like it in the future. Very simple. As far as the plot, again, major spoilers. So here's what basically happens in the film. We find two black dudes in an apartment building somewhere in Compton, or near Compton, I believe, orchestrating what looks like what could be assumed to be a drug run or a drug deal or some type of terrorist plot. And then all of a sudden there's a knock on the door, a very loud knock. One of the dudes goes over to see who it is, as the other dude orders him to go open the door. And two bald but very powerful looking women walk in wearing red and silver armor. They ask one of the men, the leader, if he's the royalty of Wakanda or who he is. He pulls his lip down, the underside of his lip, and he shows them the blue glowing imprint on his inner lip. The two women tap their spears on the floor. The apartment goes black, it goes dark completely. Then there's another tap, and then the lights come back on, and another man appears wearing what looks like some type of royal garb or some type of royalty sash over his suit. The three men have a conversation, but it's mainly the first two men having a conversation about some type of betrayal. It's revealed that the first man's name is Njobu, a prince of Wakanda, or a prince of the country of Wakanda. The second man's name was Zuri. That's his real name. He was sent by the king of Wakanda, the current king, to keep an eye on Njobu. And he disguised himself as just a regular dude. And finally, the last man, the one that just arrived after the lights came back on, he is the current king of Wakanda. And he's King T'Chaka himself, Prince Njobu's older brother. So, King T'Chaka came to find out that his younger brother, what his brother was doing, which was orchestrating a global takeover by Wakandans to save oppressed black people everywhere all over the world. And he did this by stealing small amounts of vibranium to put on the global market. Now, once T'Chaka finds out about this, he tells his younger brother, Njobu, that he will be brought back to the Wakanda to face punishment for his crimes. A struggle ensues where Zuri is almost shot by Njobu, and T'Chaka, in order to protect Zuri, kills his own brother, Njobu. We fast forward to T'Challa as he's on a mission with Okoye to help Nakia somewhere in Nigeria with some type of hostage situation. We then fast forward to a scene where T'Challa's position as the Wakanda king is challenged by the leader of the northern tribe, the Jabari tribe, leader M'Baku. He's a very interesting character, by the way. And the M'Baku and T'Challa fight. T'Challa wins. And from there, we see a man named Eric Killmonger steal an axe from a museum. It is believed to be made out of ordinary type of metals, when in reality, Eric is able to figure out that it's actually made out of vibranium. So he and Claw, the white dude with the robotic arm, and Eric's lover, they help Eric steal the vibranium axe, get out of the museum, and then we go on to another scene later on where T'Challa goes to South Korea to go searching for the vibranium axe and to find Claw. They eventually get into a fight in the casino theater area or a casino building. They find Claw and they're able to capture him. Claw is questioned for a bit, only until he gets rescued by Eric Killmonger. This time T'Challa gives chase but only just misses them. T'Challa goes back to Wakanda and continues to try and figure out exactly what is going on. Meanwhile, Eric Killmonger eventually kills Claw and brings his dead body back to the Wakandans in exchange for entry into the Wakandan capital palace. It is here that he exposes who he is. He reveals the truth about his relationship to T'Challa, calls T'Challa's father a murderer, and challenges T'Challa for the throne. Here is when we find out that A, Eric's actual name is N'Jadaka of Wakanda, and B, we find out that he and T'Challa are indeed cousins. N'Jobu was Eric N'Jadaka's father, the younger brother of T'Chaka, T'Challa's father. T'Challa and Eric perform the ritual battle, and it's even until Eric gets the better of T'Challa. But he doesn't force T'Challa to submit or to tap out. And he doesn't actually kill him either. Both of them are alive this entire time. Now all he really does is just throw T'Challa's... He wasn't all the way like unconscious, but he was like getting towards unconsciousness in that state. Eric was the one that takes him up over his shoulders and throws T'Challa over the waterfalls. And from here on, Eric Killmonger is pronounced as King of Wakanda and is newly crowned. And as newly crowned king, his first pronouncement is to use the Wakandan Air Force to deliver vibranium weapons to terrorist cells all over the world. And why does he want to do this? To complete his father's mission to spread the Wakanda Empire, conquer the planet, and bring a better life to disempowered black people all over the world. And I quote, "The sun shall never set on the Wakandan Empire," unquote. That's by Eric Killmonger within hours of him becoming king of Wakanda. It also is here where we learn more details about how the former king, T'Chaka, killed his younger brother, N'Jobu, and we found out that N'Jobu gave Eric a lot of info about who he was, or who he is, before N'Jobu died. Also, we see Ramonda take some of the flowers away before Eric burns them all. And during this time, Nakia, which is T'Challa's lover, Shuri, T'Challa's younger sister, Ramonda, T'Challa's mother, and Everett K. Ross, the CIA guy that got trapped in Wakanda by accident because of the spinal injury. They go out into the mountains and they eventually find T'Challa in his comatose body. They discover him being held by the mountain tribe, the Jabari tribe. They then bury him in the snow, give him the heart-shaped herb, which brings back his Panther powers, heals him, and allows him to speak to his ancestors. After that, T'Challa awakes. His sister Shuri gives him his Panther suit that she snuck away from Killmonger. So Shuri snuck away the Panther suit, and Ramonda snuck away some of the flowers. So that way T'Challa could have a fighting chance of regaining the throne. And they all go back to try to stop Eric Killmonger from launching his attack on the rest of the planet. So now, Eric Killmonger, or Eric N'Jadaka Killmonger, whatever you want to call him, I guess, continues his plan to attack the rest of the planet, while T'Challa arrives in his Panther armor. The elite Dora Milaje, Okoye, and 3 others turn on Eric and pledge their allegiance to T'Challa and their allegiance to all of Wakanda. The Dora Milaje regulars begin fighting with the military group that remains loyal to Eric's mission, And eventually Eric dispatches of the 4 warriors attacking him. He defeats all of them and is able to kill one when he slashes their throat. On the other hand, T'Challa sweeps through the crowd of combatants, and eventually the two face off for a second time, both using their own version of the Panther suit. The warships carrying vibranium weapons outside the hologram dome, so the ships that are carrying the vibranium weapons outside the holographic dome are destroyed. The forces fighting for Eric Killmonger are submitted, and Eric is stabbed in the chest by T'Challa inside that magnetic train line. Eric, after finally seeing what Wakanda looks like and admiring how beautiful it is, commits a seppuku, or very similar to it. Later we see T'Challa and Shuri take ownership of a building in Compton after deciding to expose Wakandan technology to the outside world. They show T'Challa's ship to some children playing basketball, and one of the kids in the basketball court comes up to T'Challa asking him who he is. Next we see T'Challa announcing to a UN-like committee that Wakanda can no longer keep itself hidden from the rest of the world, and at the end we see this interesting character named White Wolf emerge from a tent standing next to Shuri, and that's the entire film. Next up, characters. To avoid making this list too long, I decided to express my opinions on only the, I'll say, 7 most important characters, or who were the most interesting characters in the film, in my opinion. So, here are the 7 that I think are the most interesting when it comes to the storyline. First, T'Chaka. T'Chaka strikes me as a man who was intelligent, strong, and cared very deeply about his family, his kingdom, his culture, and his people. But in my opinion, he cared about his role as king to a fault. He cared too much to the point of A, killing his younger brother, B, keeping his kingdom way too isolated from the rest of the world, or rest of the planet as a whole, and C, not welcoming Eric and T'Chaka into the kingdom when he was a boy, which, looking back on it, probably would have been the right thing to do, or at least a much wiser, more well thought out idea. His intentions were good, but his actions ultimately were too strict, too isolationist, and too focused without being open to other considerations. Next is T'Challa, son of T'Chaka. T'Challa comes across as a strong but sometimes doubtful leader. He has the same ethnocentric feelings his father had, but because he's new at this king business, and because he became king at a much younger age, he seemed a little more open-minded and more idealistic, wise beyond his years, but open to more options about how to rule the kingdom, how he will rule his people. N'Jobu comes across as a Wakandan that deep down did care about his people, but also allowed himself to get exposed to the rest of the planet Earth. Once exposed to what was going on outside of Wakanda, he decided against the wishes of his brother and against Wakandan policies to bring a war against colonizers and free people of African descent all over the planet. The problem with N'Jobu is that, just like his brother, he had good intentions, but an overly irrational plan of execution. An interesting but very believable similarity between T'Chaka and N'Jobu. Both wanted something good for other people. Both had a very close-minded and somewhat irrational means of achieving their ends. Now, hopefully, as time goes on, T'Challa becomes a more rational, more open-minded man and succeeds where his father and his uncle failed. Eric N'Jadaka Killmonger. Let me say that again. Eric N'Jadaka Killmonger. Eric's character is actually one of the most complex, interesting, and enlightening of any of the characters in the entire film. He was basically a secret child who is tied to Wakanda genetically or by blood, but was separated from Wakanda by distance, ethnocentric policies, and politics. Very interesting. He was filled with rage and hatred. He wanted revenge not just on his father's killer, but he also wanted revenge against the white colonizers that oppressed black people all over the world. Or all over the globe, I should say. And many say that he was a villain, a very good villain. Others say that he was just a damaged victim. Others still say he was more of an anti-hero, albeit an overly aggressive one, whose thought process was more similar to a young, radicalized Malcolm X after he got out of prison. I would say his character was much closer to that of the anti-hero than most would think, or maybe most people would agree with this. Or at least, at the very least, he was an extremely sympathetic, and I mean very, very sympathetic villain. But very good character overall that really does make you think of a Malcolm X type. So yeah, very interesting, very well put together as far as I'm concerned. Then there's Okoye. Okoye is an awesome Amazon-esque warrior woman. She's the chief general of the Dora Milaje. I'm pronouncing that right, or is it Dora Milaje? I never remember how to pronounce that. And she's really showed off her strength, fighting ability, agility, military command, and loyalty to not only the king, but loyalty to all of Wakanda. Very good and admirable character that not only strays tremendously far from how most black female characters are portrayed in films, but to me, she was kind of sexy. As in, I don't know if anybody has noticed this, but I've noticed this for years. Black women seem to be the only ones that can sport the whole bald head look and still look very feminine. Most other women don't seem to be able to do that. Either that, or I have a very weird taste in women. Who knows? But I thought the warrior women looked pretty good in this, in multiple different ways. But whatever. Next up is T'Challa's little sister, Shuri. Shuri's character is adorable. She's very talented with the technology of all Wakanda, and her character pulls off the adorable, smart-ass, annoying, but very loyal little sister perfectly. Shuri's character kind of kicked ass, as far as I'm concerned. And she was, throughout the entire film, very, very likable. And finally, one of the characters that, in my opinion, was slightly underrated. Really liked this character and wish more people would give him more cred. Maybe they are. M'Baku, leader of the Jabari tribe. M'Baku almost stole certain scenes. When he first accepted T'Challa's challenge, when he brought T'Challa's comatose body up to the mountains to keep him alive, when he arrived on the battlefield during the final fight, his character must not be overlooked by the social commentators who are reviewing this movie. And as far as I'm concerned, his character just became more likable, more awesome, and more interesting with every single scene that he was in. Would love to see more of the Jabari tribe in future installments of Black Panther as a series if Marvel actually goes along with that. Hopefully it happens. Next up, cinematography. As far as how the movie was filmed, almost every scene, save for a few of the CGI scenes where there's something moving like a person or an animal. Other than that, the vast majority of the scenes looked incredibly beautiful. The colors were very vibrant, the lighting was excellent, and the typical gray, silver, blue look of sci-fi, it's just, they didn't go that route here. Instead, they went more with the bright gold, yellow, orange, and green. They had more earthy colors mixed in with the CGI, with the very science fiction look. I liked it. That was a really nice change up from how most science fiction films usually look like. Just more examples of how cinematography fuse things that scream Africa into the science fiction genre. Very, very nice blending of what felt like Africa mixed with science fiction, mixed with futuristic technology. Just really nicely put together when it comes to how everything looked in the layout. Nicely done. A very nice change up from the usual. Because if you don't know this, go back and look at science fiction films in general. They all have the kind like that same look, that kind of grainy, grayish, electric blue look this strayed away from that, and it did it beautifully, as far as I'm concerned. Interesting things that I noticed. Here's a couple of things that kind of stood out to me. I got 8. 8 things that I thought were interesting. 1, the kid at the end of the film, or towards the end of the film, who asked T'Challa, "Who are you?" That immediately made me think of what T'Chaka should have done with Eric when Eric was a boy. 2, Eric used what to me looked very similar to seppuku, or very kind of similar to it, after losing his second battle with T'Challa. I'm still not all the way sure why, but as far as I'm concerned, there's something very profound about that stood out to me. Maybe it's what he said before he did it. That could be it. Number 3 interesting thing I noticed. I found it interesting how the Dora Milaje were battling against male warriors. They were pretty much even with the male warriors and fought them without incurring any injuries. Maybe I should rewatch the film, but that looked kind of odd to me. But I'll speak on that a little bit later. Number 4, interesting thing I noticed. Many different reviewers, I've noticed many people commenting on the standout performance of Michael B. Jordan, who played Eric in Jadaka Killmonger. Now here's the thing. I really liked his performance. I liked it a lot. But as far as I'm concerned, his performance was not above anyone else's in the film. Everybody was pretty much on par. Everybody was pretty much on point when it came to playing their character. Everyone played their roles well in the film. And to me, personally, if anyone stood out slightly in terms of how they're able to portray their character on screen, it was actually Winston Duke's portrayal of the Jabari tribe leader, M'Baku. If anybody did a scene really nicely, it was Winston Duke, especially with his accepting T'Challa's challenge and some of the funny things he said to the CIA guy. Those scenes were really nice. That acting was really good. I think he was just a tiny little bit above everybody else in terms of his performance. But overall, everybody's kind of on the same level, if you ask me. Everybody did well. There really wasn't a huge standout breakout from anybody else. So, at least this is what I think. Let me see. Number 5. Interesting thing I noticed. Many people compare T'Challa's views as more similar to MLK or Nelson Mandela, I think. Whereas Eric in Jadaka, I gotta make sure I pronounce that right, was more like a Malcolm X or mentality, or a guerrilla group, or some type of militant takeover party. And I would agree with that. I can see that parallel. That's a pretty easy parallel to make. Number 6. I love the fact that the Dora Milaje were fashioned at least partially after the Dahomey Amazons, a group of real actual warrior women who existed under the great Dahomey Empire of West Africa. I'm going to have a link to some info about that actual empire in the description so you can check that out. It's very interesting what those real actual Amazon women did in West Africa and how they were referenced in the creation and the design of the Dora Milaje or Milaje. Number 7. And it's odd how I didn't know this for a long time until like recently, but Captain America's shield, the one that he's always been using. Now, understand this. Captain America's shield is made from vibranium. So if it wasn't for the Wakandans and the Wakandan technology and Wakanda's resources, Captain America and his greatest weapon probably wouldn't exist. Or he could exist, but he wouldn't have his mightiest weapon. Sounds eerily similar to real life. Sounds like an obvious reference to some things that have been going on in real life for the past century or so, but whatever. Number 8 interesting thing I noticed. It's been suggested, I think, what's his name? I think Richard Spencer said this. I see where he's kind of going from, but he's not paying enough attention. That would not be accurate. But he and a couple other people who reviewed the movie, they suggested that Eric Killmonger was biracial, simply because he was lighter skinned than most of the other characters in the story. This most likely isn't true when one considers what he said towards the end of his life. If you go back and check out that scene or find the dialogue transcribed somewhere, if he were mixed or biracial, he would not have been able to say what he said, since no Wakandans were ever colonized, imperialized, or brought under slavery as far as we know. So most likely his mom was just a lighter skinned black woman from the outside world, from outside Wakanda, that got into a relationship with his father N'Jobu. And that's about it. That can happen. Yes, there are people who are of African descent, who are lighter skinned, who don't necessarily have non-black ancestry. So, for the people who made that observation, nah, not quite. Probably not correct. Now for the awesome / funny dialogue / scenes. Oh God, I love the writers who did this. The people who wrote the screenplay for this, I love you. Okay, let's go. I'm going to go with my top 9, maybe 10 hilarious dialogue or just hilarious scenes in general. The first one that I really like and that a lot of people liked and they should like it, it's funny. When Okoye and T'Challa are on their ship and she says, "Don't freeze," and T'Challa says, "I never freeze." Gotta love that. 2. Early in the film when N'Jobu asked Zuri, disguised as James. Yeah, Zuri gave himself a more American sounding name, James. So N'Jobu didn't know who that was, but that was just funny. So yeah, N'Jobu was asking Zuri, disguised as James, to go answer the door after someone's knocking on the door. And when he goes towards the door and looks through the peephole, he's like, it's these 2 Grace Jones looking chicks. Oh wow, that was funny. That's like, okay, I can see that whole Grace Jones thing with all of the Dora Milaje. I can see that. Number 3, during the chase scene when they're chasing Claw, Okoye and Nakia, they're in their car disintegrates, and after an awesome display of acrobatics, Okoye lands on a damaged car hood while Nakia is still in the driver's seat of the car, but the driver's seat is still sliding forward without the rest of the car. That was legitimately funny. That was funny as hell. Number 4. Now this scene was not only funny but also very symbolic and actually very profound in a deep way. I love this scene for a lot of different reasons. The 4th one that I liked is when Okoye is walking with T'Challa and Nakia into that massive casino building, and she laments about how much she hates and despises Western style of dress. And I quote, "I want you to get this ridiculous thing off my head," unquote. And I'll just say this: natural glory forever. Not just Wakanda forever, but natural glory forever. Wear the natural hair. Stop wearing all this fake stuff. Number 5. T'Challa and Shuri are testing new capabilities of the Panther armored suit. So Shuri's recording the test and she's asking T'Challa to kick the suit twice. He kicks it the first time and nothing seems to happen except to change its color. The second time he kicks it, the suit's kinetic energy absorbers sent him flying back. And T'Challa says, "Delete that footage." That was funny. Number 6. Eric Njadaka Killmonger's most epic line in the entire film. When everybody's questioning who he is, he's like, no. I am Wakandan. And then one of the guys pulls out the necklace with the ring attached to it. And right after that, Eric says, "Hey, auntie." And I know for a fact many Nigerians, Caribbean people, and people in the American South, they're going to know exactly what that is. Because a lot of people in those areas, they say that all the time. And it's so funny when you think about it. It's like, a lot of dudes always say, "Hey, auntie." I love that line. Number 7. The scene where T'Challa and Shuri are deciding to go back to Wakanda and stop Eric from attacking the rest of the planet. And then M'Baku interrupts him and says, "Are you done? No, seriously, are you done?" Man, Winston Duke is a beast. I love him. I want to see if he does more movies. Number 8. Now, I can't remember the exact dialogue, but it's another scene where Shuri is being kind of an asshole, but being kind of adorable at the same time. But there's a scene near the beginning of the film, right when T'Challa gets off his ship, and she's walking away, and T'Challa's laughing, but while he's laughing, as she's walking away, she's flipping him off, while her mother kind of scolds her. And it's like, ugh. Okay, they're doing a good job making Shuri kind of an asshole, but kind of adorable at the same time. You just can't help but like her character. And number 9. The most quoted dialogue of the film towards the end is when the Dora Milaje and some of the other Wakandan citizens, they keep screaming, Wakanda forever. Wakanda forever. And then there's another scene. I'm going to add a 10th one. There's a whole other scene that's overlooked that a lot of people haven't mentioned as much as they should. But there's the one where M'Baku and his guys yell, who, repeatedly at the CAA guy, Everett Ross, before ordering Everett Ross to not speak and not speak in their particular area. And I'm just like, man, okay, the M'Baku character is really getting likable. And again, Winston Duke is a good ass actor. Like, he needs to be doing more stuff. I want to see more of him. But yeah, these were my top 10 favorite scenes that I just thought were funny and hilarious as hell throughout the entire film. So there you go. Next up, the best about the film. To me, the absolute best thing about this film is that something like this finally got made. A futuristic, Afrocentric, beautiful, high cinematography, well choreographed, well edited, well scored, well written, science fiction, action packed film that placed a myriad of black characters in distinguished and dynamic roles that I really, really liked. Also, it was genuinely a good storyline that had a lot of good undertones about colonialism, imperialism, ethno-nationalism, and also tied in a lot of libertarian ideas in a way that didn't feel hokey or overproduced or preachy or condescending. Just all these ideas placed in it that were just really well put together. Also, the way the film looked was also probably the second best thing about it, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's what I liked. And that's why I consider it the best in general. Now, the worst about the film. I'm going to break down 2 major criticisms I have about the film. 1, the first thing that I saw that was kind of off was the CGI was a bit subpar in some scenes. Most scenes, the CGI looked really nice. Some of the best CGI was the landscape, the background with the skyscrapers in the background and the vibranium ships that were flying around. That CGI was really good. It was really well done. The CGI that I didn't like was basically the movement of people and animals. For instance, the second fight scene between T'Challa and Eric, as well as the rhinos charging at the Dora Milaje, and some of the dynamics of the warriors all battling each other, each one of those looked a tad cartoony to me and kind of silly when viewing the CGI. As far as I'm concerned, they probably should just, well, no, they probably wouldn't have been able to release it when they did. So yeah, I can see that. But it would have been nice if the animators somehow would have taken more time to really flesh out those scenes and make everything look a little heavier, smoother, and more densely realistic. So there's that. Now, there's a second thing that was kind of wrong with the film, but it's not even so much wrong with this film. It's just something that I noticed more and more in science fiction in general that's again kind of annoying. But the second thing that wasn't so good was the fact that in the final battle, the Dora Milaje somehow survived being thrown dozens of feet, despite the fact they don't have the same type of armor that T'Challa has. They survived being either impaled, or they should have been impaled, or at least charged and ran over by the huge rhinos. Their fight with the male warriors was almost exactly even. And finally, her lover, I can't remember his name, but Okoye's lover kneels down before her and submits to her as she declares her loyalty to Wakanda. Now, here's the problem. Let me say that I really, really genuinely do like the Dora Milaje, or Milaje, however you pronounce it. I really appreciate their presence throughout the entire film. I love black women that look very, very Afrocentric and not westernized. I like the fact that they did something interesting in the storyline other than just be a stereotype. I like the strength and the warriorship that's going on there. And I know that we as fans of science fiction are supposed to suspend disbelief, but after a certain point, the dynamics of action in a movie start to get a little bit absurd. They start to go a little overboard with the absurdity. And the Dora Milaje, like I said, they don't have armor covering them head to toe like T'Challa and Eric do. They don't have the Black Panther's powers from drinking the heart-shaped flower. And the warrior women, they're still women. No matter how much science fiction excuses you want to give to it, it doesn't work. They should not have won so easily. They shouldn't survive being charged by rhinos. They shouldn't be able to get up after being thrown so easily. And they shouldn't be able to move so easily after being launched like that. And it's fine if it's done in a comedic matter, like with the crumbling car in the chase scene. That was funny. I could tell that was meant to be funny. I get that. But in this final battle, to me, it didn't look right. In a more serious scene like this, it doesn't work to have everybody be able to do things that just defy logic. So it's either that, or I just guess I'm not very adept at suspending disbelief. But I've noticed this for years, that when it comes to science fiction, if they don't go overboard with the absurdity, it's fine with me. Once they start going overboard with the absurdities, that's like, really, that's supposed to happen? Then maybe I'm overthinking it. Who knows? So now, as far as my favorite scene, I don't know if I could choose just one. I went with three. So I just want to put a note. These are not necessarily the best scenes, but they're just the ones that I like. They're my favorite ones. Remember, favorite doesn't necessarily equal the best. So these are just my favorite ones that I liked. So my first one, in no particular order, the scene where Shuri exposes the Wakandan transport ship to the children in the basketball court, and one of them says that, I think he says something along the lines of, "Let's get the parts and sell it on eBay," unquote. And I thought that was hilarious, the way they worded that and how they did that scene in the basketball court. Second favorite scene, again, this is not in order, I'm just putting them randomly, is the scene where Okoye is wearing the red dress and the wig and is lamenting about how she hates westernized clothing and beauty. I thought that was really funny, but also profound in how this film managed to sneak in a diss/commentary on the westernized behavior of black women who cover up their natural African beauty with more westernized beauty standards. This scene perfectly illustrated this without getting preachy at all. And I love this scene. I love the scene of Okoye throwing off the wig. The whole entire setup was funny, intelligent, current, absolutely correct, and honest, but it did it without beating us over the head with it. It did it without beating us over the head with this particular social commentary. Very good writing by Ryan Coogler and Joe Robert Cole. You two need to write more screenplays because this was nice. And number three, my favorite scene in the film is when T'Challa, Okoye, and the Dora Milaje are first entering Wakanda, and you see them fly over the landscapes of Africa on the continent. People are riding horseback as the ship goes by. They're waving to the king's ship as they know he's flying back to his homeland. And just before it crosses through the holographic dome, no, actually, I take it back. Right after it crosses through the holographic dome, the dome parts way, and we see Wakanda with its lakes, its skyscrapers, its trains, its beauty, its skyline, and just that whole entire scene lasted only like a few seconds, but I love that scene. It was a perfect fusion of multiple African ethnic themes being placed into a futuristic science fiction skyline. And I loved it. That picture needs to be, or rather, certain frames of that, they just need to be copied and placed everywhere online. That way people can see an example of what could happen in the future if we keep advancing our technology. I would love to see that be a real city at some point. That was nice. A true example of what more and more people are calling Afrofuturism. And I will speak more on that a little bit later. Now, as far as the music and the scoring, yeah, I'm really starting to like Kendrick Lamar. He is a beast. But let me break it down. The music and score was really, really nice. It was a really nice blend of some traditional sounding, more kind of drum music that you would hear throughout parts of Africa, mixed with really good hip hop tunes, and some classical scoring in there too, with instruments and that type of thing. And all of these were used really well and very accurately for different characters and different scenes throughout the movie. Any other type of scoring, I don't think would have matched with the feel of this film at all. So the people who did the scoring, very good job as far as I'm concerned. And none of the music felt out of place. As far as I remember, every song that was used felt like it was used in the right spot. It never felt kind of off. So the scoring seemed like it was completely on point from beginning to end, as far as I can see. Now, I'm also going to say, I like Pray For Me. That song is a good song, and it's done by The Weeknd and Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar, again, he is a beast. No wonder he won the Grammys. I think he won like 4 of them, maybe 5. But I have fallen in love with the other song, All the Stars, that's performed by SZA and Kendrick Lamar. Again, I will listen to only a few of the songs on the soundtrack, but the soundtrack sounds good. A classic soundtrack for a very good movie that may be considered a classic movie for decades to come. At least that's what I hope. It already is record breaking, I think. Yeah, I think they broke records to it, this movie, for the past almost 5 weeks. But yeah. As far as a 1 to 10 score, I give this film about a 9 out of 10. It loses only 1 point for 2 things. It loses an entire point for the CGI not being quite as good as I think it should have been. And it loses another, like, I guess half. Yeah, basically, yeah. So the CGI being kind of weird looking is like a half point. And then another half point is sometimes the cartoony way the Dora Milaje and many other warriors fought each other and survived what should have been very brutal injuries and very brutal instances in the fight scenes. So both of those are like a half point each. So altogether, that's like a 1 point off. So a 9 out of 10. Had they somehow redone those two, it would have been perfect to me. But 9 out of 10 is still a pretty high score. But I give the movie a 9 out of 10. And that's it for the scoring right there. And finally, overall, I really like this film. I don't go to the movies very often, and I must confess, one major reason I don't go, there's actually a lot of reasons, but one major one is because for a long time, I felt that way too many films are stuck portraying black characters, black environments, black stories the same way over and over and over again. And after a while, it gets really, really tiring. It gets so tiring, so stale, and to me, ultimately disrespectful to see the same stereotypes, the same shootouts, the same prison scenes, the same slave movies, the same hood movies, the same hood stories over and over and over and over again. Now, there's nothing actually wrong with those per se. It's just that they've been way overused, and every one of these themes listed above has been oversaturated, or has oversaturated the market when it comes to black films. At least it feels like that to me. This film, Black Panther, was not only refreshing, bright, colorful, awesome, and unique, but also might be the beginning of a new and long-awaited genre of filmmaking. And what that would be called is Afrofuturism, or Afrofuturistic films. These are, I should say, there are more nerds and science fiction fans of African descent out there, way more than people think there are. Yep, there's a lot of black folks that love Star Trek and Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica and Farscape and all these different things way more than people think they are. A lot of folks that like anime and video games that all come from different backgrounds, all through the diaspora, the Black African diaspora. People will be surprised how much that's brought into that community or into that population. And films like this can help bring that out. It can help expose more people outside of that to the fact that, yeah, a lot of black folks do like this type of stuff. And yep, I would say that when I left that theater last Saturday, almost a week ago, it was one of the few times where I can honestly say, I left the theater feeling really, really satisfied and really happy with what I just watched on the screen and what I paid money for. Very, very good, very nice, very high quality. Loved it. Now, what I hope to see more of in the future, I hope to see more films that depict original science fiction narratives. I hope to see more diversity in film. But when I say diversity, I don't mean diversity just in the sense of multi-ethnic characters, but diversity of ideas when it comes to storytelling. Diversity of stories, diversity of different landscapes and environments when it comes to storytelling, especially in fantasy and mythology and science fiction, that I hope gets deeper and deeper into ethnocentric or Afrocentric themes in the future. Get away. I'm very serious. Hollywood, if you want to save yourself and get yourself out of this 10-year slump that you've been in, get away from the cliches, get away from things that you've been doing over and over again, and be more unique with your particular film projects. That I think would be a smart move for multiple Hollywood studios if they want to stay in business. I also hope to see an even newer film genre that ultimately branches off from Afrofuturism, and that is ethnofuturism, as in science fiction stories, science fiction films, narratives that seamlessly blend many elements of science fiction with the cultural aesthetics of different peoples all over the world. A good example of this would be, go back and look at the designs for Cherno Alpha and Crimson Typhoon of Pacific Rim. They're both giant robots, but if you looked at them and didn't know who made them, you would automatically assume that Cherno Alpha is Russian or has something to do with the Russian military, and you would assume that Crimson Typhoon has something to do with China. They're both gigantic robots, completely fictional, futuristic, but they still have this strong tie in their design to a specific nation or nationality or ethnic group. I'm thinking we should see more of that. I would like to see more of that in science fiction, where you see futuristic technology have the trappings or the aesthetics of particular peoples. That I like to see more of. And finally, I would definitely hope that at some point Marvel pulls his head out of its ass and they finally produce a Storm film, as in an Aurora Munro of the X-Men, the Omega level mutant, African female of royal descent, who technically is actually a princess. She needs her own film as soon as possible. And I'm going to say that again. Marvel pulled their head out of their ass and produced a Storm film, as in a film focused on Aurora Munro of the X-Men, who is an Omega level mutant, who is an African female of royal descent. She needs her own film as soon as possible. No more excuses. Black Panther did well. There's no reason why a Storm film would not do well. That's what I hope to see. And that's it for my review of Black Panther. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe you think differently. I'd like to see your comments in the comment box below. Please tell me your opinions, and we'll have a discussion about it. But that's all for now. Please like, subscribe, share, and donate to support this channel. You have a nice day. I'm out. Peace.